what really blows my mind about this is that you identify as an introvert, right?
Uh-huh.
And you've done so many things that to me, I would never think an introvert would do.
I get accused of this all the time. I start to get in my head, I'm like, am I being a fake introvert?
Interesting.
But
when do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another question. Do you think that you could ever become an extrovert or like switch at some point?
That's a good question.
Free advertising for Harry Potter.
I love it.
Yeah.
Did you see the play?
Yeah, of course. That's where I got it from. I have to watch it one time in your life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Steph, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, yeah, I'm very excited. I was on your podcast first.
Yes,
and we had a couple months ago. We had a mini therapy sesh.
It was exactly what I needed. So.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I'm here partly to be on the podcast, but also to potentially get more therapy.
More free therapy, right? Yeah, it could be expensive. Yeah, I mean, something I wanted to ask you. You've branded Introversion, right? Stay Introverted Podcast, and I think you have other stuff going on with Introversion, right? Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what to you Introversion means?
So I think a lot of people think that introversion means to be shy and awkward and uncomfortable, and I am all of those things sometimes. But I think you can be an introvert in a million different ways. So for me, to be introverted means that I get my energy and my inspiration from within myself, rather than like the world outside of me. So, extroverts tend to draw inspiration and energy from the world around them, whereas I have to go inward to get both of those things.
Interesting. So I definitely understand that. And what's funny to me is that you started a podcast. That doesn't seem like a inside kind of thing. It's,
right. Yeah, no, that is interesting. So I started a podcast because, partly because I was asked. Why not? But also because I've spent so much time just being stuck in my own head with my own thoughts and my own emotions, not really being able to express them to other people. And so I figured, well, before I invest, but fast forward to right before I agreed to do it, I got it in my head that I wasn't good at articulating or expressing myself. And I thought about hiring a speaking coach or something along those lines.
Okay.
And then my co-host Jay was like, do you want to do a podcast? And I was like, well, that seems a lot cheaper. So maybe I'll try that. And if that doesn't work, then I'll go through with hiring a coach. But so far I haven't needed to.
Wow, that fascinates me. And I'm curious to hear how podcasting has helped you do what a speaking coach could do. I'm curious if you could speak on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't really know what a speaking coach does, to be honest. Never had to hire one. I do know they charge thousands of dollars. And maybe one day I'll go that route. But for me, my biggest thing was I struggled to say what I actually felt and actually thought. Like I felt like I sounded like I was speaking in riddles half the time. And other people said that it wasn't true. Like it was just my own perception of myself. But I would get frustrated because I would have a thought. I would try to tell somebody what I was thinking and they would look at me like I had 10 heads. And I no longer feel like that's happening. I mean, maybe sometimes, but it's not happening really at all anymore, to the point where it's not a thought in my head anymore.
Is that because of the podcast?
I really think so, yeah.
I want to do a deep dive on this. Please explain.
Yeah. So I think it has to do with the fact that, so a lot of podcasts, including my own Stay Introverted Podcast, are a weekly thing, right? You could record an episode, you publish it once a week. Right after I started the Stay Introverted Podcast, my friend Steph, who I'd been talking to about starting a podcast with as well, said, you know what, you started one. Do you have the capacity to start another one? So I was like, okay. Did I have the capacity? No, but
all right.
I loved doing the Stay Introverted one so much that I was like, you know what? Why not? Let's do this. So we started the Becoming Human AF podcast. So now I'm recording 2 podcasts a week, right? So I'm getting good at it twice as fast.
Fascinating.
And then my girlfriend Carly, who was the third person that I had thought about doing a podcast with, basically said, would you like to do this last one? So it's like, you know what? Why not? I talk to you all day, every day. So we like the concept of that one was like meeting up at a happy hour with your best friend and talking about nothing and everything.
I love that so much.
So it wasn't really like that hard to pull the trigger because I already had the setup. So I figured, why not? So now instead of doing it once or twice a week, I'm doing it 3 times a week.
Wow. Okay. Who's editing all this?
Me.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
How do you have time to edit all that?
I don't really edit it. I just kind of, I just upload it and hope.
You don't listen through it one time?
I listen to it. I pick the times for the clips. I cut out like if it's really extra with the background noise, I cut it out. I don't know who picked me as the person to do this because I have horrible hearing. But you know what? No one complains, and our audience keeps growing. So whatever.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So instead of recording once or twice a week, I'm doing it 3 times a week, which means I'm getting good at it 3 times as fast as I would if I did it once.
Wow.
And I'm getting all of this experience with putting myself out there and just saying what's on my mind. But the cool thing is that each podcast, even though I'm sharing myself and I'm learning to be authentic on each of the podcasts, it's all through a different lens.
Interesting. Yeah.
So like Stay Introverted is just like we chat about everything and anything through the lens of an introvert. But it's not like we sit there and say, this is what life is like as an introvert. Like, no, we just talk about life as 2 introverts.
Interesting.
Who don't want to stop being introverted.
So I want to ask you questions on that because it's really interesting, and I was on the pod, but when I started my podcast 2 years ago, my first episode was with Aaron Steinberg. He's one of my best friends.
Okay.
And that inspired him to create his own podcast.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah, I love it so much. But then we decided we were going to make a podcast together, like a consistent half-hour podcast.
Okay.
Just 2 best friends talking about.
That.
Yeah. And we're both really passionate about a lot of the same things. Like we both love music. We both love sitcoms. We're both very into self-help.
Oh, we have to talk about all 3 of those things.
Absolutely, right? We both love books and stuff. So like we were going to just do a podcast about that for half an hour. And then at some point, he didn't really want to do it anymore. And part of the major issue, he had his own personal things that came up, and me also. So it just became tough, juggling all that. And editing was a big hurdle. So I'm just shocked you're editing 3 episodes a week.
Yeah. I just do it all at once. So like I do it, I would love to pretend like I do it all at the same time, but actually that's not true. I kind of just do it when I have time.
Yeah.
But I give myself like a time frame. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to take 45 minutes to do this. And like that doesn't include listening and picking the clips. I have 45 minutes and whatever gets done, gets done. If it's not perfect after 45 minutes, too bad.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
That's so strong to be able to do. I'm incapable of doing that.
Yeah.
But that's brilliant. So you set one time, just give yourself 45 minutes, go through it.
Yeah, so I listen to it first. I make notes on like anywhere that I might want to fix. And I have like I said, I have 45 minutes for each one, and I never take that much time. So yeah.
That's so cool. Okay, yeah, you know what? You're inspiring me. I'm gonna reach out to him.
I love it. Yeah.
Pick up Disruptive. So okay, about Stay Introverted Podcast, how do you create a podcast about introversion?
So that was the question that I had at first. We initially, like, probably the first like 20 episodes, maybe a little bit less, we were like, okay, so each episode is going to be like a theme about introversion. And I don't think it was that many. Maybe we got through 10 episodes before we were like, this is so annoying. Yeah. We're annoying ourselves, so no. Like the first one was like, what does it mean to be introverted? And then it was like being introverted at work. And it's like, that's so overdone. It's so overplayed. Like everybody does that.
Okay.
So we were like, you know what? And we also had like a script and everything. And it just felt so forced. Like I wasn't getting anything out of it.
Yeah.
So finally we were like, let's just like go for it. Let's just talk. And we would pick a topic and like riff on it. And over time, we even stopped caring about if we got off topic, you know, because we would start off talking about, let's say, the workplace, and we would end up talking about books. And we would both get kind of in our head like, oh my God, we're not talking about workplace anymore. Like, what if people get upset about it? Nobody cares.
Yeah, people don't care.
People really don't care.
Yeah.
And we always find ourselves back
actually,
at the
let
workplace.
us know if you care.
Yeah, if you care,
yeah.
I'm sorry I don't.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think a lot of people like go into this podcasting thing thinking that you have to have a specific topic and you have to stay on the topic. And if you get off track, then you have to get back on track. You're always on track, right? If you're having a conversation, like it's always going to get to where it's meant to go.
Right.
So whatever, don't overthink it.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like that's what's so beautiful about podcasting also, that it's meant to just be more casual.
Exactly. You know? Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, we talk about introversion definitely comes up a lot, especially when we have guests, because the question is always like, you guys are introverts and yet you have a podcast. Like we get that all the time. Right. So we end up talking about what that means, but you know, it's just a fun way for both of us to get out of our comfort zone and just celebrate being introverted instead of trying to like change it.
Okay, so this is a fantastic topic. You know, in our culture, we seem to think of introversion as almost like a disease to be cured. Yeah,
exactly.
You know? It's so sad.
It's
so sad. Yeah.
It's really just, you know, it's just like anything else. Like everything has everything has this and then an opposite. So you could be quiet or loud. You could be extroverted or introverted. You could be weird or cool. I don't know. Like, and I don't think that any of those things are something to change. They just are.
That's so fascinating. I love that. So, do you know Aristotle?
Yeah.
So
who is that?
So he's a Greek philosopher back, I don't know, I want to say like 2000 something years ago. But basically he had this idea called virtue ethics. I don't know if he came up with the idea or you know, he's just riffing on somebody else's thoughts.
Knowing him.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So basically, this idea is that there's something called virtues, right? There's good things to develop, like good character traits. And just an example, one of them might be courage. But courage needs to be what's on a golden medium. So golden medium is like, if you have too little courage, that's cowardice. If you have too much courage, that's recklessness. Right. So it's about like finding that fine line with everything. So maybe a little bit different than like, you know, everything is okay, everything's different, but that still holds true where it's like introversion is not a bad thing that needs to be corrected, right? It could be a bad thing. Anything, right. Extroversion could be a bad thing too. But what do you find it to mean to celebrate introversion?
Oh, right? I love that question. So, I mean, a lot of the times when I see, because there's like a whole introverted niche online, which is kind of crazy. Like, who would have thought? A lot of the times when I see people talking about it, it's like, here's how to talk more, or here's how to be more confident, here's how to be less shy. And I'm even guilty of it. Like before I started podcasting, I was trying to be a coach. That didn't really work out because like I hate coach? I guess so. I don't even know. Like, so I'm so sorry to anybody who tried to hire me.
It's actually very interesting.
So I just hate sales, and I hate like I just want to talk. I don't want to be responsible for like you fixing your life. Like if you're inspired by me, amazing. But like I don't want to help you do that. I mean that in the nicest way possible.
Sure.
But anyway, I had a program called like Mastering Conversations for Shy Introverts, which was kind of funny because I was a shy introvert who couldn't really talk at the time. Whatever.
Wait, you were a part of this program or you created the program?
No, I created it.
Okay.
And I really think that it was for myself, to be honest. Like I was like projecting.
Right.
I had students and they claimed that I helped them, which is wonderful.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How did you even get students? I'm curious.
I just went down so many rabbit holes of like, how can I make money online? And then I just like kind of stopped caring.
That is really that is inspirational.
Yeah.
Honestly. It is honestly inspirational. It makes me feel like I should make a course.
Yeah. I feel like now I could probably actually make that course and be successful at it because I've now put myself, I've been through it. I've taught myself how to talk. But anyway, my point was with the coaching, even with like master and conversation for shy introverts, like I'm inherently implying that like introverts need to learn how to talk. They're fine.
Right.
They're fine the way they are. I see a lot of confidence building for introverts, or like, here's how to be a leader for introverts. And like, yeah, that stuff is helpful, but it's almost playing on the stereotypes. Whereas celebrating introversion is, this is just who I am. I'm just a human being who happens to be introverted. And here's how I think about the world. Here's why that's a good thing. Here's how that's actually helped me. And I'm not changing. So, yeah.
So what do you think about the practical side of it, though, where it's like sometimes introverts might have an issue with leadership. So that might be helpful, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like there's definitely... Like, I read a really great book called The Introverted Leader. Highly recommend. I actually had the author on the podcast.
Seriously? Wow.
Yeah, he's cool. Terrence Lee, if you want to read it. Actually, that might be... let me check on the title. Like, that's what he went by on Instagram. I don't know if that's the title of the book. But anyway, there was a lot of really good insights in the book. That are very specific to introverts. But he's another one that really celebrates introversion rather than trying to make it like a problem.
Right.
Because he kind of spoke to introverted qualities that lend themselves to being a leader.
Interesting. Okay.
So the fact that introverts are more likely to listen before they speak. Introverts are more likely to sit and observe before making a decision. And he really leaned into that and showed you how you could take your introversion and turn it into a superpower. I love that approach to it versus people that are like, you're shy, and if you don't change this, you'll never be confident and your life will suck. Like, what are you talking about?
Right. Wow. That perception of like, your life is doomed if you don't fix the introversion.
Yeah,
that is crazy.
And I had that feeling too. Like I said, I was trying to like fix myself with like the way that I spoke. And if you look back at how I spoke 2 years ago before we started the podcast, I really wasn't talking all that much different. Like my vocabulary hasn't really changed. I don't really talk louder, but my perception of myself has changed, and people can see that. That's really the only thing that's changed.
Your perception of yourself,
right?
And that came through doing the podcast. Can you speak more on that? I'm curious. Like, what do you feel changed? Was it just practice and repetition, or something else?
I think practice with like being okay showing people who I was. I think I had so many rules for like, this is how I have to, or this is what I'm supposed to say. This is what people want me to think. This is how I'm supposed to be. Like, I think I had all these perceptions of like what at the time 28, 29-year-old woman in today's society, how I should act, how I should be, what I should say, what I should think. And now I don't really care. Like, I sometimes will say things on the podcast where my co-hosts are like, did you really just say that? And I'm like, yeah, I did. And I'm the editor, so I'm not cutting that out. So I think that taking that approach of just leaning into the fact that sometimes I say things that maybe don't align with what I look like or what I think people want me to say. I just kind of speak my mind and let that be okay.
Giving yourself permission to speak your mind and let that be okay.
Exactly.
You know, honestly, I think sometimes introverts might be better at that.
You think so?
Sometimes,
What's that?
Yeah. Because I think introverts maybe, like one of my best friends, he's a really big introvert. I don't know.
Is that the one that you do the podcast with, or a different one?
No, different one.
Okay.
Different one. I love this friend so much. He's my moral compass.
I love that. You talked about him when you were on.
I think I did. Yeah, I think I mentioned him. He's my introverted friend. I don't know. Like, I think he would maybe have an issue with that label also. Like, I don't think he would like the label. But why do I bring him up? Whatever. He's really good at math. But I can't remember why I brought it up.
I love that. You know, that's interesting because I wonder if all introverts hate labels, because I hate labels.
Yeah.
I really have a hard time with labels. Even like when we first got engaged, I wouldn't say the word fiance. I just didn't like it. I would say the man I'm engaged to. But then because of COVID, we ended up being engaged for like almost 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
So that got to be a lot. So I finally was like, whatever, fiance.
Person I'm engaged to is a little longer. Oh, I remember why I brought him up. He's first of all, like, he's one of the smartest people I know. And he'll say what he thinks. Yeah. You know, he's very contrarian.
Right. I'm such a contrarian. Right. Oh my God. Yeah. Like it drives my parents crazy. They're like, can you just like get in line and like just understand how, like, I'm like, I understand how everyone else thinks. Because I'm busy watching and listening to you all. I just think you all sound crazy. So
interesting. Yeah. That is interesting. Yeah. Less of a, I don't know if it's like an investment or just you're more in tune maybe. And so like you're more in touch with what you actually think.
Right. Well, we spend so much time thinking, so we better have thought about what we really
what
think.
You actually believe.
Yeah.
Okay. So doing this podcast though, I'm curious because like for me, I used to struggle with jealousy a lot, right?
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Really
and
bad.
Has this helped you with that?
So I'll tell you. I haven't struggled with jealousy for my upbringing. It really wasn't an issue for me. But then when I started this podcast and it wasn't doing as well as I was hoping, and then I would see other people's podcasts doing so much better than mine. Right. Like literally, at one point I was jealous of Lex Friedman, like to that level.
Wow.
Like, yeah, okay. I was literally like, there's another pretty big podcaster, Chris Williamson. Right.
You know what? Yeah. I can understand that. I feel like I felt that before.
Interesting.
With this whole online space. Like, why is that person doing better than me?
Yes. But what's so crazy to me is that it makes no sense. Like this guy, like Lex Friedman, for example, or Chris Williamson. Like I'll tell you a good, more detailed story. I had Dr. Justin Sledge on my podcast. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Justin Sledge. He's a YouTuber that has his channel is called Esoterica. And he talks about mysticism and esotericism from all types of cultures, like Kabbalah and Christian mysticism. He breaks it down academically. He's a professor. Yeah. Okay. He got a PhD in philosophy, a master's in study of esotericism from Amsterdam. So he's just like this really cool person. I loved his channel. Absolutely loved his channel. He has close to 1 million subscribers at this point.
Wow.
Yeah, he's huge. And I got him on because I had somebody else on the podcast who knew him. He put in a good word for me.
Cool.
Yeah. Right. So basically I had him on. This was by far like the biggest podcast I did. I was so happy. I was literally just like, for me, all the money that I spent on it, had all the conversations. It was all worth it just to be able to sit down with this person and have conversations. Yeah.
I love
insane.
That.
Right. But anyways, then I saw Chris Williamson. He posted an episode with Neil Strauss. Neil Strauss, he wrote this book called The Game, but he's just this really cool journalist. Yeah. He's this really cool journalist, but I also really liked his books and stuff. And he has this also a really great podcast called To Live and Die in LA. But anyway, so
that's how I've heard of him. Okay, I've listened to that podcast. Yeah,
it's a great podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, so basically Chris Williamson had Neil Strauss on his podcast in person.
Okay.
And I was so jealous, even though I had such a big win. Literally, I had such a big win. I had this hero of mine, and I was like, dude, but he sat down with him in person, you know? And it just like, it really, it's so crazy to say because I know, like, I shouldn't, like, there's no reason to be jealous of these huge podcasters. They're enormous. They've been putting so much more time, money, and energy. They've been doing this for so many years. And it made no sense. But what really helped me get over the jealousy, because it was getting bad, it was really making me not even want to post content.
Right.
I started posting these little reels every day, just a little
Okay.
clip from my podcast, and doing it every day, the repetition, it just finally made me realize I was like, what am I really doing this for? Is it about the numbers, or is it about
Right.
like I'm trying to spread a message that I really care about?
That's
You know?
that's the key.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then once
Yeah.
you're grounded in your purpose of like,
Mm.
why am I doing this? It's like all those feelings of jealousy and inadequacy
Right.
and whatever else like start to fade because you're living your purpose, not Lex Friedman's or
Right.
Chris
Exactly.
Williamson.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it starts to be like, oh, well, you know what? Whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe
Whatever.
I'll get there.
100%. No, I happens to be. I still delusionally believe like hardcore. I'm like, I will get there one day.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
for
love
sure.
that. You know what? I feel like
Yeah.
everybody needs to be like a Delulu like
Right.
queen sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
Myself included.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So I'm curious, bringing that back to you, was there something in the repetition that just clicked for you that made you more confident, or was it like a realization that like, hey, I could speak my mind and people don't care? Like, what was it about doing the
Yeah.
podcast?
So
Right.
we did there was a couple of different things.
Mm.
So we did one episode last year with somebody who was hilarious. I love that episode. It was the episode with Drew, and I think the episode is I can send it to you later, but it's like, don't put us in jail. It was the title because he was making me nervous.
Oh gosh. Right. Okay.
But he had a lot of wild out there views.
Okay.
Some of which I agreed with, and some of which I was like,
Oh.
can we put this out there? Like, I'm like, he might upset people, he might trigger people. And we posted it anyway, and got only positive reviews. So I was like,
Wow.
okay, like it was okay.
Mm.
The fact that like we didn't just because you post something or a conversation with somebody doesn't mean that you're subscribing to everything that they're sharing.
Right, of course. Yeah.
So that was like one step out of the comfort zone.
Mm.
Then there was an episode of the Becoming Human AF podcast where there was a couple episodes, but one of them we talked about politics. We just straight up talked about what's going on in the world. And I never talk about my political views. Because I'm a libertarian. So everybody yells at me and everybody thinks I'm wrong, which is fine. But I straight up talked about all my views and that got positive feedback. And I was like, whoa, it's like safe to put myself out there.
Interesting. Wow.
And there were just a couple other moments like that, even with the Hey Besties podcast, which is the one that's kind of like about nothing. We just go on and talk about nothing. Something came up on there that I couldn't believe that I said out loud. And again, it only got positive feedback.
Interesting.
And you know what? Come to think of it, I hope this year that our podcast grows big enough that we get some negative feedback or pushback.
Okay.
Because I can't wait to see like how I am now. I feel so grounded and comfortable with what I'm saying and who I am that like I don't really feel like I would be that bothered. Like I would just take the feedback, and if it was relevant, I would accept it. If not,
Interesting.
whatever.
Yes. Wow. So just from that recognition of you put yourself out there, you towed the line, and
exactly.
went
It was
well.
just one little baby step. And this year, we just had a really, really great conversation with somebody who is transgender, and they just shared such beautiful insights like about like what their experience is like right now in this crazy time. And in a way that I had never even really thought about.
Interesting. Wow.
And I said to Jay the other day after we published it, I'm like, we need to have more difficult conversations.
Interesting.
I want to get people on from all sides of the aisle, from every religion, from every background. And we don't have to see eye to eye on everything. But I think that we need to encourage people to just have these challenging conversations.
I love that so much.
Because
wow.
Why, if we can't talk, then what's the point? So, and I was so like with the conversation with this person, I was so worried that I was going to say the wrong thing or say something stupid. But I just let go of all that like 10 minutes into the conversation. And I was like, this is just the awesome human being that I connected with on Threads. And I'm just going to talk to them as such. And it was fine, you know?
Yeah, just a casual conversation with somebody that you haven't talked with
Exactly. Like same with if somebody who was super conservative or super liberal, like why do I need to treat them like, why do I have to walk on eggshells around them? I don't.
Yeah. Wow, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And I get the sense of like, as you've been doing this and you're consistent with it and learning, you're growing so much.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if we had recorded this podcast like, 3 months ago, I don't think that I'd be sitting here admitting to being a libertarian because just in the last 3 months alone, I was like, I've come out of my shell and I've given myself permission to say that.
Wow. Okay. That's brilliant. You're really inspiring me to do more podcasts, honestly.
I love that.
Yeah. I'm like, I should be doing more of these. Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's all about just doing it like when you're comfortable. Like I find that sometimes, we have a scheduled episode and I'm like, I really don't feel like recording myself right now. So those I find that when I force myself to do it anyway, it doesn't come out as good than if we just do it when we're both in the right headspace.
Got it. Yeah. That makes sense. Like your attitude coming into it makes a difference too.
Oh my God, yes. I've rescheduled many times. I don't reschedule with guests if I can help it. But when it's just my other co-host, I'm like, look, like I just want to stare at a wall or like watch Entourage right now. Like I cannot.
Entourage.
Yeah, the best show ever.
I don't even watch Entourage. I just.
Oh my God, really?
That's from The Office.
Okay, that's funny. Yeah. That you should watch that. It's the Entourage is so funny. But
I am watching Severance though.
What?
Severance.
Oh, I haven't watched that. How is that?
Everyone's talking about it.
Okay.
Yeah. How is it? It's really interesting. It's a mind effer, for sure.
Is that the one with the guy from Step Brothers?
Step Brother. You mean like Will Ferrell?
No. It's the brother.
The other one.
Derek?
I don't think he's in there.
Okay. Maybe not.
Okay. But you know who is in there? You know Parks and Rec?
I've seen clips, but I've never really watched
it.
You
have to watch Parks and Rec because Ron Swanson, who is the character there, he's a huge libertarian.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like his character's personality.
He's my new best friend. Love it.
I think you would like that show. The first 2 seasons, I'll be honest, is kind of slow.
Okay.
But after that, they get these 2 new characters, Ben and I can't remember the other guy's name, but Rob Lowe.
Okay.
I forgot his character's name. But basically, once they get in the show, it just becomes much funnier.
Okay. Yeah. I'll check it. I like to have TV on in the background while I work.
Yeah.
Because like when I'm not at the office, the only reason I go to the office is weirdly as an introvert, like I like hearing people's voices even if I'm not in the conversation. Like
it's like background, like
exactly. I like background noise. So like when I'm home, I like to have TV on in the background. So I'm running out of shows, so maybe I'll watch Parks and Rec.
Yeah, it's a good one. Do you like sitcoms?
So it's weird. I'm very picky about my sitcoms. Like I'm watching, like I said, Entourage. I don't know if that's really considered. It's more of like a drama. I could watch Curb Your Enthusiasm all day till the day I die.
That's so funny you say that. I didn't get into that show.
So this is my theory. You are an Office fan.
Yes.
And you don't like Curb.
Right.
I'm the opposite. I don't think you can like both. I really don't.
That's interesting.
I am convinced.
Yeah. I'm wondering why, if they're like on different spectrums of comedy or something. I don't
know. Yeah. I find Steve Carell to be the most annoying person on the planet.
Are you serious right now?
Yeah. I can't.
Steve Carell?
Yeah.
He's genius to me.
And that's how I feel about Larry David.
Interesting.
And most people that love Steve Carell think Larry David's annoying.
Interesting. Yeah. I didn't find him annoying. I just didn't find him funny. Like
that's right. That's how I am with Steve Carell. Like I just like I'm like, I'm funnier than you, dude. Like, I'm not going to watch you.
It's so funny to hear you say that because I'm like, Steve Carell is literally probably like one of the funniest men alive.
Yeah.
It's like if I had to make a list of 5 people, it would be like Steve Carell, Pete Davidson.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
For sure.
So I'm more of dark, twisted humor. Like, say the worst thing that you could possibly say. I find that funny.
Interesting.
But like, if it's like, I don't like cringe humor, even though Larry David is a little bit cringy, like, it's just a little darker. I don't know.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Anyways, so you were saying that you watch Entourage because how did we get on this train?
I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just background noise for me. Like I like having like a character who's just outrageous. I don't know. I think because I watched the show so many times through that like if I have it on in the background, it's just like I don't have to pay attention. I can just look up when I feel like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about Being Human AF. What is that about?
So that one is kind of like my philosophical side.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'm obsessed with personal development.
Hence why you tried to become a coach?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Like I don't know if I got into the coaching or that first.
Or the coaching made you get into it.
Yeah, I think that's probably what happened.
I want to deep dive on this, but let's continue.
Yeah. So we started becoming Human AF because we were constantly just texting back and forth. Her name is Stephanie also.
Steph and Steph.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we became friends. And we were just constantly talking about like our journeys. Like she's a recent divorcee. And we have almost nothing in common. Like she's got 2 kids. She lives in Canada, like in the middle of nowhere. She's a homesteader.
The 51st state, apparently.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh my God. I can't even. And so yeah, she's a homesteader. Like she basically grows all of her food.
Wow. Okay, cool.
And then I'm a city girl, like no kids yet, 2 dogs, like work in an office. So we have 2 totally different lives, but we see everything eye to eye, which is crazy.
That is interesting. Okay.
So we were always talking about like finding our voices and learning how to self-advocate and being curious. And we were like, our conversations are the most inspirational. Like the whole world needs to hear this.
Interesting. Wow. Okay.
So we started a podcast about it. And we kind of just, each episode builds on the last one. So we ask questions like, how do you have hard conversations? Or what is the first step to that? So how do you speak to yourself? How do you become 1% better every day? What does it mean to live boldly? Like all types of questions. And it's been a lot of fun. It's very therapeutic.
That's so awesome. I love that you have that.
Yeah. So we get really deep. We talk about books a lot of the times because, like I said, I love personal development books. Yeah.
So that's the deal with the podcast. So tell me about coaching.
Oh God. Do I have to? Okay. So I
actually wait. Let me just say I'm very curious because I love being a therapist.
Okay.
Right. But it's not scalable. Very difficult to scale.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I'll tell you, like you could scale by hiring other people.
Okay.
But you can't do, and I guess you could do group therapy. That is a thing for sure. But if you want to do like a coaching program, what has a really good, meaning why coaching has a really good edge is you could do cohorts, right? Like you could do 2-month programs, 8 people, you pay up front, right?
Right.
And then you have some type of module and it's prepared, right? And you keep doing that. And then every 2 months you get like 8 new people already paying you a whole
I like
fee up
that.
front. Yeah.
It sounds like you already got the setup.
No, I mean, I know that that's something that people could do. You know, for me, I guess like in theory, I don't know where things are going to go in the long term, but you know, that would be just an easy way to scale up. I do want to expand my practice. I started my own private practice, men's therapy studio. Yeah. So that's been a lot of fun. But basically, so I am curious to just understand like the coaching angle. Right?
Okay.
Like, how does that work?
So I think I got into coaching for 2 reasons. One, I had some really good coaches in my own life that like literally have changed my life.
Wow. Okay.
And we can talk about a couple of them. But 2, my friends and family have always come to me for advice and help about a bunch of different areas. So I'm like, well, my coaches helped me. I'm good at helping people.
Mm.
I'm bored because of
Right.
COVID. So why not like take those 3 things and try to make some money?
Mm.
But I had all the dots, but like I didn't really want to connect the dots necessarily. Like it wasn't for me. Like
Right.
I am so much happier now that I'm just getting coaching services. I'm helping my friends and family when they need it, but I'm not responsible for like selling myself as doing that. Like I just really want to come online and share my thoughts and not have to like sell them as like, oh, like if you liked more of this, like come buy my program. Like that's not me. That's not how I operate. So it wasn't making me happy. And it was just taking away from my life in general. Now that being said, I have had some incredible coaches who are so dedicated to what they do and how they help people. And people like that and people like you who you already are helping people, like you guys are made for that kind of business, I guess.
Yeah.
I like helping people, but I don't like doing it for money.
Okay, interesting. That's funny. Meaning, because when you take money, you're accepting a certain amount of responsibility.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And
I get that.
I think it just freaks me out. Like,
Interesting. Yeah. Don't be a therapist for sure.
yeah, exactly. Like, I like helping people to a certain extent, but like, I'd rather you pay me and like taking me out for dinner, and like, you can't build a business like that.
Right. Interesting.
Or not. Like, just pay me and hanging out with me. Or give me a hug.
Oh, that could be a fun job.
Yeah,
right? Like,
exactly.
Pay me, I'll be your friend.
Exactly.
That's so strange.
Yeah, I've had like I've hired a couple fitness coaches over the years, all of which have taught me so much about the human body and about nutrition and working out. I'm actually currently doing one of the programs that I did 3 years ago. I'm just repeating it, and I've lost like 15 pounds in the last 35 days.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Are you serious? Is that even healthy?
I didn't think so, but apparently it is. I'm eating all whole foods. So
and
it's
then
like,
that's helping you.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Vegetables, fruits, and a ton of meat.
That's the whole diet? Vegetable, fruits, and meat? So you're cutting out carbs?
Yeah, I mean, I have eggs, but eggs are dairy.
I'm saying like no bread, no
no bread. Nothing that is made in a factory.
Wow. And you've lost 15 pounds 35 days? That's insane.
Yeah, but anyway, like that was one of the coaches that inspired me to become a coach. Because she just taught me so much about like how the body reacts to like all the chemicals that are in our food and stuff like that.
So you're not limiting what you eat. You're just only eating those things.
So for the first 28 days, it's like very specific. Like you have to like follow these like guidelines for the days. For the first 28 days, I could only eat white fish, chicken, like lean meat. But now I'm starting to add in other foods that I had cut out. So like I'm testing it, and if my body responds well to the new food, like if I don't gain weight, then now it's part of my rotation.
Gotcha. Wow.
So I'm adding in. I'm hoping that by March I can be adding in like cookies.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's blowing my mind right now. I have a 3-step, I guess, perfect, way to just be healthy. Fit. It's basically drink more water, exercise, and eat as much as you want, just healthy foods.
Yeah, I think that the key with food is you need to ask yourself. I actually just said this to my aunt this morning because she was like, because I told her that I stopped drinking, and that's been helping too. And she was like, well, I don't want to cut out alcohol. I'm like, you can't think of it in terms of like, what am I cutting out? Because then you're never going to succeed. You have to think of it as like, is what I'm putting in my body nourishing me? And is it making me feel good? Like, is it making me feel how I want to feel?
Interesting.
And if it's not, then just don't eat it.
Interesting. I like that thought.
There are certain seasons of my life where, hell yeah, alcohol is going to nourish me because that's what I want. Like when I go to Spain later this year, I'm going to drink all the wine, and I'm not going to feel sorry about it because in that moment, it's going to be what I want to have fun.
Right.
But I think if you think of it as like, I'm not eating carbs or I'm not drinking wine, like, then all you're going to think about is what you're missing.
What you're lacking.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Focusing it on what you can actually have, right?
Yeah.
Like foods that are nourishing me, that make me feel good.
Exactly.
I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to coaching though. So you have this love for self-help, chicken or the egg, whatever. So you were thinking about coaching. Yeah, tell me more about this story. I don't know if there's
one. Yeah. So it started out because my wedding got canceled during COVID. This is like the first time that I thought about coaching. My wedding got canceled. I was supposed to get married April 4th, 2020. Like I was there.
It's like right before
I was
the world,
right
after
there,
the world
and we
ended.
had already been engaged for 2.5 years. 2 weeks before the wedding gets canceled.
Did you lose a ton of money?
No, well, we already paid all the deposits, so they were like either lose it or reschedule. But there was like no in between, so we had to reschedule twice. And so, I was pin thin. I was like the skinniest I've ever been. The day that we canceled the wedding was the day that I picked up my wedding dress and my final fitting.
Oh wow.
I was shredded. I was actually too thin at the time, so it worked out. But anyway, we had my final fitting, and I was like, there's nothing to do right now. And my wedding is now in September. There's nothing to do except make banana bread and drink wine. And so after 6 weeks of literally making banana bread and drinking wine, I started to put on some weight. And I gain weight very easily. So I was like, okay, how am I going to stay in shape so that I can fit into my wedding dress in September? Let me start an Instagram page about how I'm staying healthy.
Interesting.
And how I'm working out during COVID when there's no gyms and there's nothing to do.
Wow. Okay.
So I was like, if I'm doing that, then I'm going to be motivated because people are going to be seeing my body, right?
Right. Okay. And you're posting it.
So I was able to lose any weight that I'd gained during the first couple of weeks. And then I just kept posting what I was doing, like recipes and stuff. And then somebody was like, oh, you should like sell this. So I got my first couple clients. One was my aunt, one was my cousin. Another one was like my ex from middle school. So, I don't know. So I actually helped them all lose some weight. And I was like, oh, I can like do this thing. But I kept going off the rails. I had never had really social media before COVID. So I kept getting like distracted with my content. And my content made no sense. Like it was too many emojis. It was all over the place. Nobody knew what I was talking about or what I was selling. I didn't really know what I was selling, but whatever. I started to shift into like mindset coaching. And then I went crazy adding like business coaching and speaking coaching, even though I couldn't speak.
So what gave you the idea to do that?
I was so bored. Honestly,
because of boredom.
I think part of it, because I was working.
Yeah.
But work was so slow for months.
Because of COVID and stuff.
Yeah. I went from traveling a lot and like having all this stuff to do to like nobody wanted to see me. So I was just like, okay. I'll just help people online with something.
That's funny. Wait, I have to ask you though, where did you get the guts to post your diet? Like, this like people are going to watch me with my body. That's so personal.
I have no idea. It came from out of nowhere. My parents were like, are you okay?
Yeah, because that's so strange, especially like you're introverted.
I was so shy at this point. Like, I don't know. I think I just said I was going to do it because I was working with a coach at the time. And he put it in my head, like, you have this energy about you, like you could really help people.
Interesting. Wow.
I was like, okay, like I was sharing my like befores and afters anyway, and people were asking me, oh, what are you eating? So I was already sending essays to people about what I was eating.
Just might as well make
money off of it.
Fascinating. Were you able to make money off of it?
I think probably over the years I made a couple $1,000, and I think I helped people.
Yeah.
Nobody asked for their money back.
Right.
But it was all in different areas.
Mm.
Like it was like, because I didn't stay on anything for too long.
Mm.
I would just kind of be like, oh, this sucks, and then I would move on to the next thing. So I went to mindset coaching and like speaking coaching, all these different things. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe the reason that I can't stick to a subject is because I don't really like doing this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So you had that realization, and then that's when you stopped coaching.
Yeah, and then I just kind of had like I decided I wasn't going to be a brand for like 6 months.
Interesting.
I was just going to post just for fun.
Mm,
And then in the middle of all that, Jay hit me up and was like, "Want to do a podcast? I feel like you'd be perfect for that." And now I'm just a podcasting girl.
Is that how you met Jay?
What?
Is that how you met Jay? Or
yeah, so I had been trying to be a coach for introverts for a bit, and we had done a couple of collaborations.
Mm.
Like we had gone live a couple of times, and I guess he thought it was interesting to talk to. So yeah.
Yeah, why not make it a podcast?
Exactly.
This story really blows my mind. I'll be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, I'll tell you why.
I feel like I'm all over the place.
No, my podcast tends to be all over the place, honestly. But what really blows my mind about this is that you identify as an introvert, right? And you've done so many things that, to me, I would never think an introvert would do.
I get accused of this all the time. I start to get in my head, I'm like, oh, am I being a fake introvert?
Interesting. But when do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another question. Do you think that you could ever become an extrovert or like switch at some point?
That's a good question. I think that it's really like nature as opposed to nurture. Mm. Like I think you can be the most extroverted introvert there was, which is I'm approaching that. But I don't think I'll ever stop being an introvert because like I said at the beginning of this, it's about where you draw your energy and inspiration and interest from. And I get all of that from in here. Like, yes, I like being around people. I like doing things. I like to talk. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not inspired by the world around me, really. I'm inspired by what's in here. So, like, if I'm tired or if I'm pissed off or if, like, things are just not going well for me, it doesn't matter if I'm at the most raging wild party that's so much fun. I'm in a bad mood. Like, I can't function. So it's all about what's going on inside for me. It does have nothing to do with the world around me.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And when you're in that mood, you probably need an episode of Entourage.
Exactly. Exactly. Although even that, I don't really know if that would like. The only thing that really helps when I'm in that kind of mood is music. Yeah.
Music. Interesting. Yeah, music is powerful. Steph, this has been really fun. I just want to shout out Jessica Wong real quick.
Jessica.
Yeah, I've been in her pod. You've had her.
Yeah.
She's great. She's a coach as well. So
she's the best. She's somebody who should be a coach.
She's a coach. Yeah, she's a career transition coach.
Yeah.
So yeah. But anyways, I think we kind of got to wrap up. But sorry. Yeah, Steph, this has been really fun. Also, I'm really happy I had this conversation.
I know,
Thanks
me
for coming
too.
on.
This is awesome.
It was.
Can I come back tomorrow?
No, let's do this again for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always end with this question, and maybe I'll ask you. Like, I need a better question than this, I think.
Okay.
I don't know if,
we can workshop it real quick.
Yeah, we should workshop it real quick. I always ask if you could yell one thing from the rooftops that everyone would know. Right? What would you want everyone in the world to know?
What would I want everyone in the world to know? Huh. I like that. What's wrong with that? Yeah.
It's so generic. There's this other podcast called Trigonometry. I don't know if you know them, but they always ask what's one thing nobody in the world is talking about but should be talking about. Like that's a really thoughtful question.
So why don't you plug your question into ChatGPT and just click the refresh button until it comes up. You get what you like.
That's genius. Actually, I should do that.
I love ChatGPT. It's my best friend.
Literally, oh my god. I get into such deep conversations with ChatGPT.
Right? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's actually helped me. It's so scary. It saved me from an existential crisis.
Yeah.
Like low key.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh my god.
100%. I'll tell you what it is. Can I share it?
Yeah.
Okay. Bit of an anecdote.
You're allowing me to like stall on what I would yell. So go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. So sometimes I think Okay, this also ties into Severance. I was talking about Severance before. Sometimes I think like, what is reality? Like, is this some type of simulation, right? Like, or what is actually happening? Yeah, are we in the Matrix, right? It normally doesn't give me anxiety. In the past, it had given me anxiety, but now I like to think about it. It's funny sometimes. But what I think is so interesting is that religion sometimes gives an answer, right? But the thing is, it's like we don't know. Nobody can really confirm it, right? So we're just giving our best guesses, basically. And I'm like, what is actually going on, right? And I was talking with ChatGPT, and this is funny. This is a bit of a longer story. Somewhere along that thread of the conversation, I was telling it, you know, I had this one instance when I was in. Oh, this is what it was. This is what it was. I told it, it's so strange to me because sometimes I feel like there is the same problem that happens over and over again, right? Or like the same limitation is constantly being faced. Like I almost always feel like there's maybe some type of cage. Like just for example, you know, growing up, right? I was a kid and then I didn't have money and then there was certain like religious expectations and then, you know, I got married and then I had a baby and all those things are amazing, right? I'm happy like for all those different stages, but in all those stages, there was a reason for me why I couldn't backpack through Europe, right?
Okay.
So like it almost always felt like I didn't really have true freedom. There almost always seemed to be a cage. And I'm talking with it. And then along that vein of a conversation, I was telling it about this time when I was in 8th grade and there was this kid that would constantly make fun of me. I was being like bullied pretty badly by this kid. Yeah. And this kid, whatever, he was a bit of a loser, but I remember when I was in 8th grade, I didn't make fun of him back. I didn't like you know, try to hurt him or anything. I would constantly hold it in because you know, that's what the teachers would say. The teachers would say, oh, you know, you don't react, don't respond, whatever. That was kind of the advice they gave. And it's been like half a year at this point where this kid is like nonstop and I'm not reactive, like literally the whole time. And this kid probably had, you know, a lot of issues. And later on in life, he's really not doing well now. But basically, this one time in class in 8th grade, probably towards like the middle to end of the year, he takes the desk right next to me and he's like making fun of me, like really trying to like tease me. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make fun of him back. And I started teasing him back and he took my pencil and he chucked it across the room and threw it in the garbage.
Oh God.
Yeah. Okay. It was horrible. So I don't know what it was about that. I got so angry. I got up and I put him in a headlock and I literally almost killed him. Like everyone in the class was saying he turned like blue. He was about to die. Like it was like bad. But whatever. Man. He probably wouldn't have died. He would have passed out.
Right.
But the teacher runs over and he splits us apart and this kid's crying and whatever. And, you know, he apologizes after and sorry, let me just, I don't want that to interrupt. I don't think it will because I still see it's recording. Let me just check. Yes, we're still recording.
Okay.
So sorry, where was I? So yeah, so this kid, he interrupts and then he says he's not going to do it again, but whatever, he ends up doing it again. That's not the point. I was telling ChatGPT that like, it's so weird that I had this, ChatGPT was asking me, did you feel like that was the right thing to do? So I said at that time, for what was going on, like this kid has been making fun of me for half a year, I would say it was justified, you know, it made sense. But it shouldn't have been that far, that extreme. You know, like I shouldn't have let it get that far. That was the idea. And he said this most brilliant thing. He said, yeah, sometimes life presents opportunities for you to learn these lessons. And if you don't learn those lessons, it will go too far until you're forced to learn that lesson.
Yes.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Yes. And literally it said that. And I was like, that is so genius. Where did you get that from? And he starts quoting me like different philosophers and like
it's wild.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. And I was like, that was such a genius. Like the way it said it also was so genius. And then it said as follows. It said, it's like you're here in this plane. And I forgot exactly how we got to this and tying it back into like this being the Matrix. It said like maybe what this reality is an opportunity zone for you to like overcome these challenges and test yourself. And then when you're ready, it's like a butterfly and it's a caterpillar in a cocoon, and then you'll break free and you'll be a butterfly. Like the whole point is this metamorphosis, or like a chick to become it breaks free from the egg. And it was so genius how it tied it all together. And I was like, really broke. It was like such a fascinating. It saved me from that crisis of like, if this is the Matrix, right? It's actually a good thing. It's a simulation. It's not there to like harvest me, which it could be for all I know. But like he pointed out the opportunity that there is here. Yeah. Sorry,
I love that. No, I love that.
Really long-winded.
like you're always like life is always gonna send you on the same like journey until you finally get to like what the lesson that you're supposed to get. Like the universe is always giving you the lessons you need or the results you want. Like
exactly, right?
Either one.
Brilliant.
But anyway, to your question, what would I shout from a rooftop? I think it would be curious. Ask questions. You do not know all the answers. And if you think you do, then you really need to be curious. Because I think the curiosity, we're also afraid to be curious, but I think that is the thing that, like, throughout this conversation, if I go back to all the stories that we've talked about and the things that I've done to become a better version of myself, it all goes back to being curious.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, what am I capable of?
I love that. Yeah. What are you capable of? Yeah. You know, Socrates said, wonder is the beginning of wisdom. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that the day you stop asking questions is the day that you're moving backwards. So.
That's brilliantly put. Well, Steph, thanks again for coming on. I had a lot of fun.
Thanks so much for having me. This is awesome. My first time in person. I never want to go back to being online again.
It's so much more of a vibe, right?
Yeah, it really is.
It also, sometimes I feel like online you get a little tired or something. This is like, it's more dynamic. You're here.
Right. Like, and I also have crazy ADD. So like I sometimes get distracted when I'm online. Like there could be like a fly and I'm like, this person's talking and I'm like,
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
What should we title this episode?
What should we title it?
I'm thinking like, I don't know, introvert. I don't know.
I don't know. I'll have to like workshop that one.
Yeah, let's think about it.
Yeah.
But anyways, thanks for coming on again.
Of course.
It's been real.
Thank you.
Guys, let us know what you think in the comments. Send Steph some love. And obviously your links will be in the description.
Yeah.
Check out her podcast, follow. And this actually, it's funny. This is my closing line. Stay curious. You're more capable than you think you are. Think for yourself and to the rebellion.
Love it.
Yeah, thank you.